Now, did I get caught up in the hype for all the new 5 stars and 4 stars and forget to talk about the free-to-play that we get in this event? Maybe, but I'm gonna spin it instead by saying that now that we're a good week and a half into the event, everybody should have access to this character, and they can now properly level them up. So you may be wondering, I leveled them up for the missions, but are they worth actually using? Is this some gimmicky character? Is Castoria's Bestie just around to kind of help out Castoria? Or is she legitimately a strong servant? And it's a little weird. I do think this character is not bad, but I think it's going to be more trouble than it's worth for a lot of players to really get the most out of them. Or you're just going to relegate it to, I have Castoria Berserker, and this character offers her some pretty decent buffs, and I'm tired of using OG Castoria. Or you just want to use all of them together, and that's kind of funny. So we're going to break her down in today's video, talk about if she's good, worth using, what she does, all that good stuff. Now, I do put these videos out every single day to make sure you always have something FGO related in your subscription box, so if you could drop a like on the video, maybe even subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed already, that would help me out more than you know, and it's absolutely free. But let's start diving into her kit, starting off with her hits, of which she is rocking a triple arts deck with a pretty moderate 0.41% NP gain, a pretty decent 14.8% star gen, and 3 hits on that quicken arts card, so decent hits if you're trying to refund her NP, and maybe if you're trying to get a little bit of extra crit stars here and there. Do keep in mind that because she is a foreigner servant, even if it's not called, you know, all the existence outside the domain stuff that foreigners usually have, she is still being able to passively gen stars and also gen her own NP, so while it might not sound like a lot, having, 4 stars per turn and 4% NP gauge every single turn is quite nice. Do also note that while she is present on the field, she is passively buffing everybody's star generation rate by 20%. So again, if you're pairing her with Castoria, Castoria already gen stars, this character is going to be passively genning stars, and then there's just going to be a little bit of extra stars in rotation just because of her own passive skill, giving everybody more crit star generation. So that is nice, and I do also want to say that if you do not have your own foreigner servant, this actually might be more valuable for your account because foreigners on the whole are either very limited or are just a bunch of 5-star characters. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but pretty much every single foreigner character is a limited character, 4 or 5 stars. So having access to one that is at least decent is going to impact your box in some way because, we've all fought those Berserker bosses. They're slamming you for big damage. Foreigners are one of the rare classes that actually resist Berserker damage. So having somebody that can not get Tim Tam slammed into the ground by, I don't know, a Roku altar or something is pretty nice, especially when the other free-to-play foreigner idol altar, while really cute, isn't exactly the best free-to-play character by modern standards. So that at least does have some applicability when going into fights. Now, we're going to cover her skills in a little bit of a different order because Castoria's Bestie over here does kind of have a gimmick. She revolves around this My Fair Soldier buff that, getting into her second skill, Queen's Covenant, she's able to give everybody for 3 turns, although it's a little weird because it does skill seal them, but I guess the trade-off is that you're not able to use your own skills, but she's going to be giving you some kind of buffs to make up for that. And there's also the fact that you'll see in one of the gameplays, because it went on so long, that you can just use those other character skills, then use her second skill, and then, her third, first skill, all that good stuff, to kind of get into it that way. It's very similar to Janako, or Ganesha, whatever you want to call her, where she can give some pretty solid buffs, but she does have that third skill that does seal your skills, but you can just play around it. Or someone like Tristan, where you can kind of play around the fact that he has like the NP seal on himself. You can just sequence your skills in a way to where it really doesn't matter. But this skill is going to be giving everybody 20% NP damage, and then if you have the My Fair Soldier debuff, those characters get 50% attack and 30% defense, which is really, really strong. That is a mondo amount of attack and a pretty good amount of defense, considering that if you can reach 100% defense, you effectively take 0 damage, because that's just how FGO works. It's additive for these defensive buffs. So even if you're not trying to go for some meme wherever you're going to have 100% defense, 30% plus any other character's innate, 20% defensive buff even, we'll be putting them at a solid half damage taken from anybody, just because Maeve is able to give them that massive buff. But again, it does come at the cost of your skills, but you can play around it. Now that we've kind of talked about our main gimmick, let's go back to her first skill over here, which is a pretty selfish skill, but does still offer something to your characters that have the My Fair Soldier status. So it's going to be giving her 1 instance of debuff immunity, it's going to give her HP and NP recovery, 1000 HP per turn, and 20% NP every single turn, and if you have the My Fair Soldier status, those characters get 30% battery, which, again, not bad. Effectively, what you have right now is a character that can give you a 30% battery, 50% attack, 30% defense, which isn't bad. Those are some really strong generic buffs that really any character would like to have. Any character would like an additional support in getting to their NP. Anybody's going to want that additional 50% attack and 30% defense, so they're hitting harder and being extra tanky. Even characters that don't have offensive NPs, like say a Super Orion, still want to be firing their NP as often as possible and will always take extra attack to do more damage with those big fat crits. Unfortunately though, that is kind of where her supporting abilities do end. I mean, technically, if we look at her third skill, which is Violin's Violin Voltage, it's going to give her a 20% arts buff for 3 turns. It has a 60% chance to stun all enemies for 1 turn, kind of like the Charm ability on Shuten Doji, and then it reduces all enemies' defense by 20% for 3 turns, and then has this odd ability where it has a guaranteed chance, pretty much because it's 500%, to seal the party's arts cards except for herself and Artoria Castor, which is the original Castoria, and the new summer version of Berserker Castoria. This still technically offers more damage, and technically survivability if you do land the stun, because the enemy can't do anything for that turn, so technically it does keep you alive. And reducing the enemy's defense is more damage support, because lowering the enemy's defense does let your other characters do more damage against those enemies. But it does kind of feel like there maybe should have been something else tacked on here. Maybe like crit damage for the party. If you have My Fair Soldier, even 30 to 50% I think would be suffice enough to kind of help them do extra bonus damage. And again, the sealing party arts cards is kind of cute. You know, it's like, oh, I'm Castoria's bestie. Only me and her are going to be doing arts card damage, which is still fine, because again, say you're using somebody like Super Orion, who I mentioned earlier. That guy predominantly wants to be doing damage with his buster cards anyway, and it is only for 1 turn, so you can kind of time it in a way where, oh, my Super Orion doesn't have his 1 arts card up right now. Let me go ahead and pop this, lower their defense, stun them, and then let Super Orion go to Pound Town. But this is kind of what I mean, where it might be more trouble than it's worth for a lot of players. There is a little bit of a skill curve with this character, I would say, if you can kind of call it that for FGO, in that you want to time your buffs effectively with this character, not only when you use their buffs, but when you deem it an appropriate time to use them, which for FGO, when you just have these very OP servants like Koyenskaya, Castoria, your Scotties, and even to a lesser extent, your people like Reigns and Waver, that you can kind of just click all of their skills whenever they're up and then you're just good to go. It might turn some players off to using this character, including myself. When you have the better options, you might as well use them, especially when some of those options like Tamamo and Waver have had multiple times where they were available for free, whether it be for just finishing Fuyuki and getting your free 5-star, or the couple of times that they've offered players a free 5-star ticket and you could pick up the supports that you are lacking. But that doesn't mean this character is bad. I mean, the things they are doing are good. They're not bad. I mean, even their own NP kind of gives them a little bit of a survivability solo meme going on. It reduces the defense for all enemies further by 20% for 3 turns, so if you are firing this multiple times, back to back to back, you are doing more and more damage as time is going on. But the survivability part comes in that she removes all of her own debuffs and gives herself a fat 5,000 to 1,500 heal depending on overcharge, and do keep in mind, there are characters like Lady Avalon that on her charisma does give you an overcharge level, so if you are using her, whether you're bringing a friend or you have your own, because she is rerunning with this event, you can start this off as a 7,500 heal, which is big and fat and juicy. That is a big ol' heal, considering that her base max HP, with foes of course, is going to be 13,500. That's pretty much a full half heal for her, which is nice, because again, that's not something that Arts is natively offering if you're going for the double Castoria setup, unless you want to go out of your way and use somebody like Tamamo, which, again, Tamamo propaganda, she's good, she's worth using. But again, you're not going for one of those, then this is a character that can kind of keep themselves around. So at the end of the day, you might be wondering, okay, this is all fine and good, but is this character worth leveling? Well, you do need to level them up a little bit anyway to finish the missions for the summer event, but as to whether or not they are worth using, I would tell you to try it out sometime. Just give it a little bit of a try. It does force you to kind of use some skills you don't normally use in FGO, you know, in timing your buffs, figuring out when to use them, especially again for that third skill where it's going to seal your arts cards. It kind of gets you into learning about card rotation. But is that something that is good in FGO? Not particularly. I mean, FGO is kind of structured in a way where the best thing you can be doing is firing all of your skills as often as possible, right? And so if you're not able to use them because one of your characters is forcing you to time your buffs, that is not very conducive to how FGO wants you to play. But again, that's the glory of this character being a free-to-play. It's a free-to-play option that you now have in your box, that if you ever want to change things up or you don't have a better option, they can at least be kind of that free version of a little bit of a support that can also do damage and can be a little bit of a survivability tank type of meme. She gives you a couple of different options just for being in your box, especially, again, because foreigners themselves are very, very high rarity and are all limited. So if you don't have one, you now have access to a foreigner in your box for all of those pesky, weird berserker bosses, and that's at least somewhat useful. But I would say this character's value diminishes a lot if you already have a lot of the top tier supports in the game, or you already have yourself a strong foreigner character, you already have somebody that can be DPSing for you, especially because this character doesn't really hit all that hard. They have no ramping damage, they have no special power mod, nothing along those lines. I mean, they don't even have innate crit buffs for themselves, so it's not even like you can use them as a crit character without going out of your way to kind of force them into being one with people like Lady Avalon. So they're very, I guess, unimpressive for me, but I can see the value this character would bring to a Chaldea that is maybe newer. Maybe you just started the game because Anniversary and Summer are some of the most popular things to happen in FGO. Or if you just really like Maeve and using not Maeve, quote unquote, over here, kind of scratches that itch for you. She is usable, but you probably have better options in your Chaldea. Even on the free-to-play aspect, if you're trying to use her with somebody like Castoria, who is an arts character, you have people like Paracelsus, Zhufu, Asclepius if you were lucky to back him on one of his raid-ups, or if you were a big dumb dingleberry and pulled on the story gacha, you have them as low rarity options. And like I mentioned before, people like Waver and Tamamo not only are available for free by finishing Fuyuki, the first story chapter in the game, but also they will be getting other chances to pick them up for absolutely free, or maybe you just bag them randomly while summoning on a different banner. So would I say this character is bad? No, but I would say they're kind of unimpressive. They really fall into that same niche that I think Ruler Da Vinci falls into, where technically you could use them as a free-to-play support that can flex a little bit as a DPS, but you probably just have better options if you're looking at your arts characters. Maybe if you're really down bad, you can use them as like a quick or buster support for some of your characters, because again, attack, defense, and battery are things that any character could use and would want to have. But again, especially with people like Lady Avalon, Ruler Scotty, or even Oberon going on raid up again for Summer 8, it does kind of leave them in an awkward position if you do manage to pull some of those other characters, because then this character is probably not getting used. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you are a JP player, or if you're on NA and you immediately max this character out, let me know some successes you've had with them and where you think they stand overall. But with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. You guys have yourselves a nice day, and I'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace!